Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode with the Crime and Coffee Couple. My name's Allison.
And my name's Mike.
Hello, Mike.
Hey, Al, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good, thanks.
Yeah.
You know, just getting back in the swing of this summer ending and school starting bits.
Holy crap, folks. If you have any kids going to school, you're probably, I think we start earlier than a lot of states
Maybe
in the United States.
a week or so.
But, man, we've been into it. So our son's 15 and our daughter's 12.
So they are in 7th and 10th grade.
You saw me look to you like this, if you can help me out
What grade
here.
are they in?
Yeah. Man, it's been a rough one. So just to give you a little background, it is of my opinion that perhaps we could parent a little bit better, but we let our children through the summer go to sleep at like 3 a.m., 2 a.m.
Oh, our son was up most nights, a lot of the time, until about 5 a.m. He would wait or go to sleep right around the time I'd be waking up for work. And then I would come home, say 2:30, and I'd have to go in his room and wake him up. And he had enough nerve to turn in his bed and go, "Good morning, Mom." I'm like, number one, it's not morning. It's 2:30 p.m. Number two, I've just worked 8.5, 9 hours, and you are just starting your day.
Yeah, it's been, if you feel like a bad parent, just know, we're all trying our best.
We're worse.
We're all trying our best, and we are failing. So our son, he stays up. Now, his argument is that he gets to play with his cousins online. Like, his cousins live in Illinois, and he lives in Florida. So they all get to hang out, like, different ranges, too. They're like 11 years old up to 24-ish or something like that.
And they just have the best time, but there's a 1 hour time difference. So they're an hour earlier. So he wants to stay up later. So we had this huge conversation last night because we started them getting back in the swing of going to sleep at a normal time days before they went back to school, and we're saying when he needs to go to bed, when he needs to wake up.
And holy cow, was it an absolute war? Absolute war. He's like, let me stay up till like 10:30. So he's getting up at like really early, 5 something. Yeah. And he's like, well, how about like 10:45? Because I shut the internet off at a certain time because he can't control himself, obviously. So he's got that addictive personality. And he's like, oh, how about like 10:45? I'm like, no, the answer is you need at least 8 hours of sleep. And I think we're being generous only saying you need 8 hours of sleep because really he could use 10 or 11. And it's
we looked it up, and the recommendations for a 15-year-old are 9 to 10 hours a night.
Yeah.
And he's like, there's no 15-year-olds that go to bed at 9:30.
Yeah, it's like using that whole gag.
Like, I don't give a hoot.
I don't care about any other 15-year-olds besides you, buddy. So
you're our kid.
Yeah, so it's like 8 hours. He's like, all right, well, what about 10:30 or 9:45? I'm like, well, let's see. What time do you wake up? He's like 5. I'm like, okay, well, 8 hours from that is like 9 p.m. So no, you have to be off the video games at like 8:30 in order for you to get to bed at 9.
So this was a 45-minute conversation yesterday.
It's like
fun.
A lot of math involved, and minus the 8 hours and all that. But you won't hear us talking about our daughter because
we just say, all right, Reese, you got to go to bed. And she's like, okay, good night.
Well, in her head, she's like, yeah, that's actually a good idea. She's like a 45-year-old practically, just like you.
Our son, he's something else.
Yes, he's a good time.
So it's just been a transition, but it's good that they've got a routine and they're not sleeping until 2:00 because I'm sorry, that's just not right.
Yeah, and so in like a week he'll be totally fine. It's just a matter of getting it back on track.
Our daughter is like a zombie. She's not herself at all. Even after school, she looks like so depressed.
Like
I'm
dead
like, are you
eyes.
okay? And she's like I'm so tired.
Because it's just like a total. And we tried to adjust that as we went into it, but it takes a couple of weeks to really get into it.
Yeah, their bodies are like in haywire.
Yeah.
So it's been fun here in the Pernecki house.
Yeah. I know I mentioned in the last episode that insulated French press that I bought, and it's still rocking, man. I'm using it every single day. I'm worried that I'm going to have a little bit too much caffeine because I think it's like 3 big orange cups of coffee if you're watching this on YouTube. This is the cup I fill up about 3 times, and man, I am zooted.
That's what I was going to ask you, if you're like buzzing around.
Oh, it feels awesome. It's incredible.
Your heart's going to explode out of your chest.
Well, I hope not. I hope it doesn't go that far.
Yeah, let's hope not. You got to just control yourself.
Right, exactly.
We're talking about our son controlling himself. You need to control yourself.
The coffee's so good. Some of the beans that we've received or that I've purchased, or like I just bought some from Costco, the Kirkland brand French roast. It's very, very, very good. So I'm going to be very, very talkative, talk very quickly.
You already are.
Yeah.
So with that being said, are you ready to jump into this?
I'm always ready.
All right. So this is the murder of Mo Wilson. So 25-year-old Anna Moriah, or Mo Wilson, because that's what she went by, Mo, was an up-and-coming gravel cyclist who was found dead on the floor of her friend's Austin, Texas bathroom on the night of Wednesday, May 11th, 2022. And the cycling world was truly rocked by the news of not only her sudden, but her violent death. And Mo was beloved within the community and those around her. Everyone that knew her loved her. She was a cherished person, just a lovely human being, and no one could wrap their heads around who would ever want to hurt her. So Mo had flown into Austin, Texas 1 week before her 26th birthday. She went there in anticipation for the 150-mile gravel locos race, where she was favored to win, and she was staying with her friend Caitlin Cash because Caitlin lived near where the race was going to be. So it was win-win. She was going to be there in town, ready to do the race and catch up with some friends.
So she's pretty well known in this community.
Very much so.
Wow.
So her friend Caitlin, who Mo is staying with, came home to her apartment and discovered a horrific sight. She found her friend's body on the floor at 10 p.m. and she immediately rushed to the phone to call 911. Caitlin, tearfully and panicked, obviously, told the dispatcher that she didn't know what happened to her friend, but she needed a EMS. She indicated that her friend wasn't awake, she wasn't breathing, and there was blood all over her face and on the back of her head. So, she's coming home to this scene. She has no idea. Did her friend fall? Did she have a seizure and hit her head? She has absolutely no idea what's happening. So the dispatcher instructed Caitlin to begin CPR. Austin police soon arrived, and tragically they found out that it was too late and Mo was already deceased. It initially appeared that Mo was the victim of a brutal beating, but the responding officer soon noticed that there were at least 3 shell casings from bullets on the ground near her body. It was quickly determined that Mo had been a victim of a fatal gunshot wound to both the head and chest. One of the shots passed through her hand, which likely happened as she raised her hand to defend herself. It went through her hand and ultimately struck her in the head. Just disgustingly tragic.
I mean, you picture holding your hand up to say no, and
yep.
That's sad.
There was a second gunshot wound to her head and 1 shot to the chest. It passed through her heart and exited her body, striking the floor beneath her, so she had been shot 3 times. It appeared that the attack started near the front door of the second-story apartment and went backwards, which ultimately led toward the bathroom in the apartment. It was a smaller size apartment, and she was found in the bathroom towards the back. So whoever came upon her started their attack near the front door, and it was obvious that Mo was trying to flee her killer and went towards the bathroom. So whoever shot her had at some point stood over her body and shot her at least 1 time. There were no signs of a burglary inside the home or a break-in, and truly the way that the picture was painted to investigators, the execution-style murder appeared to be very personal. As investigators began to speak with the sobbing Caitlin, who had found her friend on the floor of her apartment, she was asked if Mo had a boyfriend, and Caitlin began to explain what the situation was, that Mo didn't even live there. She had flown in from San Francisco, so she didn't have a boyfriend there. Mo was born on May 18th, 1996. She grew up in the Kirby, East Burke, Vermont area, and she spent most of her early years skiing. She had the dream of one day becoming an Olympic skier. She always had the strong belief that if something was meant to be, it would be, and everything happens for a reason. That was like her philosophy in life. When Mo was a sophomore at Burke Mountain Academy, this is an elite ski school, she tore her ACL, and at the time she was ranked 3rd nationally for her age in giant slalom. So she's very talented.
Very gifted.
Very much so. So then she sadly tore her ACL again 3 winters later, and this was after she fulfilled her childhood dream of joining the Dartmouth Alpine ski team. So basically the way that she got into cycling was she was using it as a form to rehabilitate herself after these 2 ACL tears and bring back her strength, and ultimately found that she was falling in love with it. So Mo earned her engineering degree during her time at Dartmouth, and her family indicated that she truly always embraced adversity in life. So she saw it as a way to push her further rather than looking at it in a negative light.
I mean, what an accomplished person. Like going to Dartmouth, engineering degree, like among one of the best athletes in the school and in the nation. That's a lot.
Just an amazing human being. And they said that her work ethic was just unbelievable, that you couldn't stop her. If she had her mind set on something, she was going to do it. So Mo was obviously a very athletic young woman. She came from a family of athletes. Her father, Eric, had actually been on the U.S. ski team, while her aunt was a 2-time Olympic Nordic ski racer.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, incredible.
It's in the genes, yeah.
So after months of rehab for her second ACL tear, like I said, she started to have this new dream. So her vision went from skiing to cycling. And in less than 3 years of gravel and mountain bike racing, Mo was the top off-road cyclist in America.
That must be so frustrating for all the other people. They're like, what? She just started 3 years ago?
Who is this girl?
Right.
So soon she quit her full-time job, and with the support of her sponsors, her friends, and her family, she went full force and fully committed herself to this new dream. She once told a mentor, when you love something so much to the point that you're fully committed, you make the choice, and the risk sort of becomes irrelevant. Because even if you fail, it will have been worth it. The process and all that comes along with it is much more important and valuable in the end. So she really had a great perspective on life.
Yeah, I mean, dangerous a little bit, but at the same time, it's like, I love this. And if I get hurt doing it, I'm doing something I love. So it's just how it's going to go. And she was so driven. It was just like, I'm doing this no matter what.
The whole thing is, too, she still had that engineering degree. So she knew that this was this amazing experience that was helping her body, her life. She was seeing and experiencing new things. And you know what? If it didn't work out, she had that experience and she could go back to engineering.
Well, being an old guy, my first thought, like biking and cycling and any of that kind of stuff, like I see mountain biking. It looks amazing, but I'm like, I would die. I think I would just run into a tree. I'd make like a wrong turn and be like, boom, your neck is broken.
It's risky for sure. So Mo eventually moved to San Francisco in order to focus on cycling. She began to climb to the top of the sport. She had been in the process of actually moving back to Vermont, where her family was and where she grew up, when she was murdered. She had spent 2.5 years in California training, racing, and working, and had achieved her goal of what she wanted, which was to become a professional athlete and do this full time. Mo had always envisioned using her platform as a cyclist in order to give back to her community, which she knew helped form her into the person that she had become. So she wanted to give back. And I think that's really remarkable. So she had previously written in her journal that her mission was to inspire to ride bikes, be active, whatever that looked like. Not everyone has the same interests, but she knew being outdoors and using your body ultimately bettered you as a human being. So she wanted to inspire people to do that.
Sounds awesome.
So Caitlin told investigators that Mo had been out that night with her friend Colin Strickland, who was a fellow cyclist. Caitlin had gotten a notification from her electronic front door lock that Mo had gotten back to the apartment at 8:36 p.m. We know that Caitlin came home at around 10 p.m. and found her friend. So Mo had ultimately gotten back about an hour and a half before that. Caitlin said she herself had left to go and have dinner with some friends at about 5:30, and when she came home, she tragically found her friend bloodied, unresponsive, and on the bathroom floor. She immediately called 911. She said that all that she knew was that Mo had plans to meet Colin. They were going to go swimming that evening. It was about 5 p.m. when she had this conversation with Mo. 35-year-old Colin Strickland was well known. He was a decorated athlete within the cycling world. He was considered a pioneer in the cycling community. He was sponsored by top brands such as Red Bull. So he himself was very accomplished. So investigators began to canvass both the inside and the outside of the apartment. And as they searched the vicinity of the outside of the apartment, they first came across this canvas-looking bag. And they're looking at it, wondering what it is. And they ultimately determined that it was the cover for Mo's bike. So Caitlin was asked where would Mo have put her bike because they didn't see it. She said she would have stored it just inside the apartment, but it wasn't there. And as they continued to search the outside, they discovered Mo's bike in the bushes near Caitlin's apartment. It was in a heavily wooded and grassy, weeded area. They couldn't understand why someone would have taken the expensive bike and just thrown it in the weeds outside.
So this is her bike for competition?
Yes, this is a bike.
This is a very expensive bike.
Very expensive bike. She's using it to participate in the race that she was in Austin for. This was the 150-mile gravel bike race in Austin, and that's why she was there. So, this killer viciously killed Mo and then took the time to carry this bike down the stairs of Caitlin's apartment and just chuck it into the weeds where they ultimately found it. Why? What would be the reason for that?
I mean, you're wondering if it's a competitor, obviously.
Right. So investigators combed through the surveillance footage from the area homes where Caitlin lived and noticed that a dark SUV with a bike rack on the back was circling the neighborhood for about an hour before Mo returned. The car is seen driving by several times. Unfortunately, they couldn't get image of the license plate because the bike rack was obscuring it in the videos that they were looking at. So only 1 minute after Mo had been dropped off at Caitlin's apartment, investigators obtained footage from a neighboring security camera that showed the black Jeep driving by. So it's happening about an hour before Mo even comes back home, and then it's there right at the time she's coming back. So clearly they're putting this Jeep in relation to what happened to Mo. So as the neighborhood was further canvassed, this was very chilling, and I got to listen and watch this in a video that I watched. They found a neighbor with a chilling Ring doorbell footage of the night that Mo was murdered that was recorded between 9:15 and 9:16 p.m. So that is the very moment that Mo was killed. So this is about 40 minutes after Mo had returned to the apartment, because we know that Caitlin got notification that the front door was utilized at 8:36 p.m. The footage picked up the sounds, and it was just so sad, of a person screaming, followed by 3 gunshots. 2 shots quickly rang out, and then after 4 to 5 seconds of silence, the third and final shot could be heard. Earlier that evening, investigators found footage of Mo and Colin at a local restaurant. This is a place called Pool Burger. And before that, the two had gone swimming and then rode on Colin's motorcycle back to Caitlin's apartment. So knowing that Colin was likely the last person to see Mo alive, obviously they went to his home to speak with him.
Yeah.
So the following morning is when they went to his house, and as they approached, they found Colin in the garage. They informed him that Mo had died, and when he was asked when he was told that, he asked, how did that happen? You know, this is a 25-year-old healthy girl. What happened? He was told that they were conducting a homicide investigation. Colin appeared to be stunned into silence as he learned the news. You could tell he was just standing there processing the information that he was being told. So he told the officer that they had gone swimming at the local Deep Eddy pool in Austin and then headed to Pool Burger, which they knew because they saw this in, plain view on surveillance. And then afterwards he had dropped her off, and that's lined up with exactly what they had been told. CCTV footage showed Colin driving away on his motorcycle right after dropping Mo off at Caitlin's apartment. So as the officer spoke with Colin, they noted that there are several cars sitting on his driveway, and this included a 2012 black Jeep Cherokee in the driveway, which matched the footage that they had seen from the night before in the hours prior to and immediately following Mo's murder. And lo and behold, this SUV had a bike rack on the back of it.
Okay.
So Colin indicated that the SUV belonged to his roommate, who was also his on and off again girlfriend. And when investigators ran the plates from the Jeep, they were registered to a woman also named Caitlin. Now, this is Caitlin Armstrong, and she's 34 years old. Colin and Caitlin had met on a dating app in 2019, and she was a young woman with a finance background. She had also gotten certified as a yoga instructor in Bali. She had a love of travel. And after she met Colin, she actually started to get into cycling because it's like, what do they say? If you can't beat them, join them. Mm-hmm. So, she's an athletic girl and he's into cycling. So they started biking together. And then she actually went on to race on an amateur level herself. So Colin and Caitlin would ride bikes. They would just be active together. And in 2020, when the pandemic hit, they were just kind of naturally forced into isolation together. And they began spending more and more time together. And eventually they purchased the house and they moved in together. So Colin agreed to go to the station for an interview with police, and when he was asked about Caitlin, he indicated that she had always been a truly mild and gentle person. They dated on and off again for about 3 years. They even started their business together. They were restoring trailers, and Caitlin, having a finance background, she covered the financial side of things within the business. So in late 2021, the relationship started to get rocky, and this is where they started to take breaks from each other. And during these breaks, they would start to date other people. And during one of the breakups, Colin met Mo, and the two, obviously, they're, both good looking young people. They're in the cycling world. They share the same interests. They hit it off. So they had a casual and romantic relationship. In one of my sources, it said for about a month or two, but according to Colin's words, the relationship spanned only a week or so. So romantically speaking, it wasn't long, but they still enjoyed each other's company. So according to Colin, their relationship basically just phased into what he described as platonic and professional. So Colin was quickly ruled out as a suspect. So we know he is with Mo in the moments before her death. But again, he could be seen driving away on his motorcycle just after he dropped her off. They checked his phone records. He had actually been speaking on his cell phone at the time that she was killed, which we know according to that Ring doorbell footage, which was between 9:15 and 9:16 p.m.
Wow, so that gets a good alibi for him.
Right. So when Colin was shown the surveillance video of the dark SUV that's literally sitting on his driveway and registered to Caitlin.
Like, what do you think? Any Jeep match this description that you know of? He's like, yep, unfortunately it does.
Undeniably, he could not say that it didn't match that. And he was asked, what do you think happened? And all he said was, I know both of these people, and I just can't imagine. It's just so far beyond the realm of reality that I live in, or so I thought.
Well, you got to start wondering if there was some jealousy issues before that too. I mean, obviously that's what spurred this whole thing, but like when they're on again, off again, was there any jealous stories?
You will come to find that yes, there were.
Okay.
So he could not imagine that Caitlin could be possibly capable of something so horrible and violent. And that if he could imagine it, he wouldn't be with her. He wouldn't be sharing a house or a business with her.
Yeah.
So he's stunned. So he said that he loved Caitlin, but he did not see her as a life partner, and instead he felt that they were truly just better business partners and friends. When Colin was asked if he owned any firearms, he was very transparent. He admitted that, yes, he had purchased 2 handguns in the past. He was, used for personal security. They're living in Texas.
Everybody has a gun.
A lot of people have guns.
As soon as you're born,
Texas.
you're given a gun in Texas. Yeah.
So when a search warrant was obtained for his home, no surprise, again, he was transparent. Police found 2 9mm handguns. And Colin said he bought them not too far back, and one had specifically been for Caitlin. And he said that they had actually gone to the firing range together in order to practice. There is footage of Caitlin standing at the firing range practicing shooting. So, this is kind of all lining up. We're seeing Caitlin's Jeep. We know she has a gun. We know she's been practicing. So he does start to also talk more about what kind of relationship they have. And he did indicate that Caitlin was the jealous type. And to the point that he had to change the names of women in his phone. So he tells the investigator, Mo is not in my phone as Mo. And he listed Mo's number under an alias. And on the evening that he was out with her, he told Caitlin that he was running errands and that his phone had died. So on the night of the murder, detectives soon found out that Caitlin's phone had not been connected to a cell network, meaning that she had either powered it off or she had placed it in airplane mode. And as detectives knew, in this day and age, if your phone is off and not connected to a network, they said, unless you have a good reason for it. If you're on an airplane, okay, I get that. But if in normal circumstances, you're either the victim of a crime or you're committing a crime.
Yeah, but at the same time, that's saying you're guilty without being proven guilty.
But it was a red flag.
It is true. Absolutely. You got to look more into it.
So it's a red flag. So right now there's 3 hits against Caitlin. Well, maybe 4. She's driving a Jeep with a bike rack on the back. Her phone is powered off. She has a gun. She's been practicing, and she's a very jealous person. So things aren't looking good for Caitlin.
No.
So that same day, Thursday, May 12th, this is the day they were talking to Colin, police actually arrested Caitlin, and they brought her in for an old outstanding warrant for failing to pay for her Botox treatments. So she's sitting in the interrogation room with this female detective, and she's asking, what is this all about? And during the interview, she's like, why was I arrested? So the woman that's interviewing her realizes that the date on the warrant does not match Caitlin's birth date. So they're realizing, oh, she's actually not under arrest and can leave at any time.
Okay.
They had to tell Caitlin that. They had to be honest, and they told her. They said, we're needing to ask you some questions, but you can go at any time. So she voiced her frustration about the fact that she had been arrested, that she had been in the presence of her neighbors, that she had been taken away in handcuffs, and how embarrassed she was. And that she mentioned that she was possibly going to obtain a lawyer. She didn't say, I'm going to stop speaking, I want a lawyer. She just kind of mentioned it.
Yeah.
So Caitlin was asked if she was aware of what had gone on in the past 24 hours. It's like, you're not sitting here in front of us because of a Botox failed payment.
Like, we're 99% sure you just killed somebody, just so you know. But any idea why you would be here?
Right. So she said, well, I do know that Colin came inside and told me that a woman within the cycling community had passed away. So she's aware of the fact that something happened.
And did you know this woman?
So she said she was not upset by the fact that Colin had been out with Mo that evening before. She remained calm. She showed very little emotion. And when she was told that her SUV had been seen near the scene of Mo's murder, she she basically didn't ask. She said, I would like to leave. She continued to say this in, the same way, in addition to further questions asked.
Well, what's interesting, you can ask, that's fine. You can say, I would like to leave. And you're more than welcome. Just get up and leave.
Get up and leave.
But the police aren't going to say, go ahead. They're going to be like, yeah, absolutely. But anyways.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, because you get them right back. You're
right.
and so she's too stupid to understand. You just get up and walk out.
Right. And, the woman that's sitting there asking her questions was asking her, okay, so where were you last night? What were you doing?
Just ignore that. Yeah, ignore that part about I want to leave.
Yes. And she did. She did a good job of that and just continued to pepper her with questions. And police had no choice, though, to ultimately allow her to leave at this point because they just didn't have enough to hold her. And detectives saw that the way she was reacting and responding wasn't normal if you were innocent. If you had been home and doing something, you would be like, I have nothing to do with this. She wasn't saying that. She just kept saying over and over, I would like to leave. So police later learned that after leaving the police station, Caitlin went on to go to a dealership to sell her Jeep. 2 days later, on Saturday, May 14th, 2022, Caitlin's friends actually contacted the police and said that Caitlin had been extremely furious about Colin's relationship with Mo to the point that she wanted to kill her. This is a friend of Caitlin's.
Wow.
So, however, by the time the arrest warrant was actually filed, Caitlin was gone. She was no longer in Texas.
Jeez.
On May 14th, Caitlin Armstrong fled Austin, and the Lone Star Fugitive Task Force, which included officers from the Austin PD and the U.S. Deputy Marshals, were tasked with finding her. So now they're on the hunt for Caitlin. So surveillance from Austin Bergstrom International Airport caught sight of Caitlin. She's walking through the airport with her backpack on and a yoga mat attached to the back of it. It's like, you're planning on doing freaking yoga?
Well, she's got a lot of relaxing to do, or got to get it out of her head because she just killed somebody.
So ultimately, they saw that she had flown into LaGuardia Airport in Queens, New York. So detectives speculated that from there, she may have gone to her sister's house because they knew that she lived in upstate New York, and their instincts proved to be correct. So they went and spoke with Christy Armstrong. This is Caitlin's sister. And, Christy is telling them that her sister stayed with her for a couple of days, and then she had dropped her off at Newark Liberty International Airport in New Jersey. And the last she had heard, Caitlin was boarding a flight back to Austin. But then Caitlin called Christy back and said, you know what? I decided to drive back to Austin instead. And, Christy must have found this weird because I looked it up. It's over 1,700 miles. It would take 25 hours.
Yeah, it's a long way.
There's no reason why you would take the opportunity to drive 25 hours by yourself.
Sure there is, because you just killed somebody. Right. You want to be found.
But of course, her sister does not know what's going on in this time frame.
Right.
So this made absolutely no sense to investigators, and they soon began checking outbound flights from Newark Airport, but there were no reservations made in Caitlin's name. So now Christy is telling investigators that she could not locate her passport. So they checked with their contact at Homeland Security, and within only minutes, they got a call back with confirmation that Christy Armstrong had traveled from Newark, New Jersey International Airport on a one-way flight to Costa Rica.
Oh, wow. That's kind of smart.
Yeah, so she rummaged through her sister's things, found her passport, and took it.
I mean, she's a lowlife. Absolutely.
Horrible human being.
Oh, yeah.
So Christy was adamant that she had not given her sister that passport. You know, she's not in cahoots and supporting a fugitive.
We'll see.
And lo and behold, Christy has never been charged with anything in this case.
Okay.
So when Caitlin landed in Costa Rica, Deputy U.S. Marshals Amir Perez and Damian Fernandez collected as many photos of her as they possibly could. So they followed her to San Jose, Costa Rica, but there was no sign of her within the city. However, she did have a 1-month head start on them, so she could be anywhere at this time. And they knew that finding her was going to be a challenge in itself, despite the fact that they would have help from the Costa Rican authorities as well as the U.S. Department officers. A reliable source indicated that Caitlin had been staying in hostels throughout Costa Rica, but the area is very saturated, with hostels. There's so many hostels. Finding her is basically like looking for a needle in a haystack at this point.
Well, she's white, but then...
But I'll tell you, there's a lot of American tourists.
I was just going to say that.
Yes. So the team back in the U.S. managed to track down a phone number of an American businessman, and they believed that this person had been in contact with Caitlin, so they wanted to talk to him and see what he knew.
Financed her somehow.
So they made the decision to cold call him, and when he answered, they identified exactly who they were, and he treated the call as if he was dealing with a telemarketer, and he responded, "I don't want any," and hung up on them.
Well, you think everybody's a scammer, so it's like just wait until they're gonna ask me for money or something.
It was just kind of funny.
Yeah.
So they call him back 3 to 4 more times, and finally they get him to stay on the line, and he begins to talk to them. He told them that Caitlin was now going by the name Beth. He also told them that she no longer looked like she had in the photos that they had shared with him. They were told that Caitlin had changed her appearance. She had cut her long hair into a shorter style. She had dyed her red hair brown. He said that when he talked to this woman who had identified herself as Beth, he had no idea that he was speaking with a woman named Caitlin Armstrong. He did say that he believed that they could find, or where they could find her. He said that he had met her at a yoga studio in Jaco. This is a very popular tourist destination. It's known for its nightlife and its beaches. It would truly be a perfect place for Caitlin to hide. So since it was their first real tip, they quickly made their way to this area. They began combing through hours of surveillance throughout the city to see if they could catch sign of her, and they didn't. So 1 month after Caitlin vanished, the U.S. Marshals were focused on another area within Costa Rica after another source suggested that she could be in the small village of Santa Teresa. This is on the Pacific coast. So as they arrived, they were told that their mission would be very difficult as many of the women in the area closely resembled Caitlin. Since it was very saturated with people from the United States, this proved to be true. As they're literally walking down the streets, they're like, that could be her. That could be her. It wasn't going to be easy.
Yeah.
So they got a female investigator to start attending area yoga classes.
Oh, smart.
In hopes of finding Caitlin, because they knew she was super, super into yoga. What would be a way for her to make money in Costa Rica? Teaching yoga classes. Tons of tourists are there. They're on the beach. They're holding yoga classes. This would be a good spot to find her. They also began talking to members of yoga classes who started to basically help keep eyes out for Caitlin. And they mentioned, yes, we've seen her in spots around Santa Teresa. So they knew they were getting closer. So Caitlin was using multiple names in hiding in plain sight. They spoke with a man named Greg. He was from New York, and he owned a restaurant and a bar in Santa Teresa. He indicated that Caitlin had come in, but she had identified herself as Ari. She said that she moved to the area in order to teach yoga down the street, and she gave the appearance of someone who was truly looking to establish her roots and settle into her new home of Costa Rica. So one day, Greg bumped into Ari. I'm using quotes because we know this is Caitlin. So he would go to the beach every single night with his dog for sunset. And one night he bumped into her and he noticed as they were talking that she had a bandage on her face. And when he asked her, what happened? How come you have a bandage on your face? She said that she had gotten hit in the face with her surfboard. And because this is a huge surfing town, this was very plausible.
Yeah.
And he took it for what she said. So the marshals were starting to lose hope when, they're like, we can't find this girl.
Yeah.
So in a last-ditch effort, they posted an ad on Facebook looking for a yoga instructor. And after nearly a week had gone by and no one had responded to this ad, they basically were giving up hope. They were going back to San Jose in preparation to fly back to the States. And just at that time, they got a bite, and someone suddenly replied to their inquiry and identified themselves as a yoga instructor and agreed to meet. They began watching a hostel called Don John's because this is where this person indicated that they were staying. So the deputy U.S. Marshal Perez went to this hostel. He went by himself and he was only speaking in Spanish because he wanted to give the impression that he was just simply a tourist that was entering, and he did not want to give her any reason to flee. So as he entered, he sees two people sitting at a table off to the left. One looked like Caitlin, but he could not be 100% certain that it was her. He began speaking to this woman strictly in Spanish, and she grabbed her cell phone to utilize Google Translate. This is when he noticed that she had a bandage on her nose. It looked like her lips were also swollen. So when he looked at her and she looked at him, it was her eyes that made him 100% sure now he had the right person.
Why?
Because you can't change your eyes.
Yeah, so she had like blue eyes or something.
You can go and try to manipulate your hair color, do something to your face. You can't change your eyes. So that's what made him hone in and say, this is her. I got her. So Deputy U.S. Marshal Perez is now notifying investigators that he had finally found her.
That's awesome.
So local police moved in to make an arrest. Soon, investigators located a receipt at the hostel for plastic surgery. I think she had paid over $6,000 to have a nose job done. So this is when she was being captured. This is June 29th, 2022. And again, we know that she was basically doing a vanishing act on May 14th. So at this point in time, she's been gone for about a month and a half. So they realized that while they were just combing through Santa Teresa, she had actually not even been there. She had been back in San Jose. And when I say back in San Jose, I looked it up. It's only like a couple miles difference. But the point is, they're looking for her here, but she's having surgery there.
Right.
So they were in the wrong spot at the wrong time. So when the deputy spoke to the female operative who had been going to these yoga classes, she was shown an image of Caitlin's new face with this nose job, and she said it would have worked. She's like, I would not have said that this is the person I was looking for.
Wow.
So she could have so easily slipped through their fingers.
Whoever the genius was put out that ad for a yoga instructor.
100%. And they had given up hope. They were literally going back to San Jose to board a flight when she took the bait.
And she was the only one that called.
She was the only one that
Crazy.
called. Yep. So Caitlin was ultimately extradited back to Texas, where she was charged with Mo's murder and she was held in jail. 3 weeks before the trial was set to start, she was escorted to a doctor's appointment by authorities, and after her appointment, she actually escaped custody and she ran away. And it was ridiculous to watch this. This was all caught on film.
Like, whoever's in charge needs to be fired. That's just unacceptable.
She's leaping through the bushes, trying to climb a fence, and this woman's trying to run after her and catch her. She was shortly there captured. She did not get away. So as police began looking into forensic evidence and electronic data, they found that Caitlin was fully able to go in and read everything that Colin had on his phone. His text messages, his emails. She was able to see who was calling. She had all of his passwords.
What a psycho.
She had access into his Instagram account. I mean, that's just so messed up. So she had been following Mo on this app called Strava. And this is something that athletes utilize to help track their workouts, their miles, etc. So she knew exactly where Mo was. So it's just so eerie because investigators believe that while Mo was actively texting with Colin to make plans for that evening, we know they went swimming, they know, they went to dinner. She's telling Colin where she is, that she's at Caitlin Cash's apartment. She's giving him Caitlin's address so that he can come and pick her up. And they believe at that moment in time, she's sitting at home with Colin's laptop, actively watching these messages come through, knowing exactly where to find her.
Tracking location, seeing where they are each time, and then just being like, okay, well, now I'm going to head over to Mo's friend Caitlin's house.
She's watching where they're going.
Yep.
So, and it's likely that she was also tracking Colin's location on the night of the murder. So she knew exactly where they were when she was being dropped off. So they could also see that Caitlin had been harassing Mo before her murder. You could see a text message from Colin to Caitlin saying, "You called Mo? WTF? Question mark, question mark, question mark." So he was aware that Caitlin was very jealous. Even though he had changed Mo's name in his phone, she knew exactly what was going on. She was calling and texting Mo and harassing her. So after murdering Mo and before fleeing the scene, Caitlin had taken Mo's bike from Caitlin Cash's apartment, which is on the second floor, and discarded it into the bushes yards away from where she had parked her Jeep, likely in attempts to stage the scene as a robbery, because we do know that these professional bikes, they're very expensive. Yeah. They also theorized that maybe it was like a stick it to Mo kind of thing.
That's exactly what it was.
Yes.
It wasn't a stolen property
F
thing.
You.
Yeah, well, I got you. Now leave my boyfriend alone.
I mean, this woman, she's a freaking monster.
She needs help.
She needs major help.
Yeah.
And she's this like yoga woman. Like when she was brought into the station, she had these like yoga leggings on and just sat so calmly. Meanwhile, she is a monster.
Murderer.
It's a like brutal murderer.
Yeah.
So the trial for Anna Moriah Wilson's murder began in November of 2023. The jury was able to hear that 4 surveillance videos had captured images of Caitlin's Jeep circling Caitlin Cash's apartment for an hour before the murder. Now you could say, okay, well maybe there's other black Jeeps in the area that have bike racks. But they took Caitlin's Jeep despite the fact that she sold it. Obviously, they tracked down her Jeep. They pulled the GPS from the Jeep. It was exactly taking that path that they saw.
GPS from the Jeep?
Yes.
Wow.
You watched it on the video, circling around Caitlin Cash's apartment.
So it was definitely her.
Yes, it was her. So, then, of course, they're being told by her attorneys, but how do you know it was her that was driving that Jeep? You couldn't see who was driving that Jeep.
Sure.
So the jurors are also hearing that Caitlin had actually left her DNA on both Mo's bike seat and the handlebars when she chucked it into those weeds.
Oh, perfect.
So it's like she's trying to do a dig towards Mo after brutally shooting her dead. She's chucking the bike into the weeds as a final FU. Well, that helps seal the deal because she left her DNA evidence on the seat and the handlebars, and then the 3 shell casings that were recovered at the scene of Caitlin, at Caitlin Cash's house, they were a match to the gun that Caitlin Armstrong used. So, they're just building this case, solidifying that there's no way that the jury could say that this wasn't her.
Past the reasonable doubt.
Right. And again, I say that the jury or the defense is trying to say, well, we couldn't say for certain who was driving that Jeep, and that the things that Colin was saying, Caitlin's a jealous person, this, that, and the other, he's only doing that to cover for himself. It's like, excuse me, no, we've already ruled out Colin. He wasn't there. He was on the phone.
And then that person would have heard a gunshot if it was like for some crazy reason you're deciding to talk to somebody while these gunshots are going on.
Right, exactly. They would hear that on the phone.
Yeah.
And, again, it's being said that not one person actually saw Caitlin Armstrong commit the crime. They couldn't say it was necessarily her that did it because no one saw her.
Well, no kidding.
But her DNA is on the handlebars and the bike seats.
Yeah, case closed.
It's
She's
a
guilty.
joke.
No problem.
So more than 40 witnesses took the stand on November 16th.
40?
Yeah, more
That's
than 40
lot.
people. On November 16th, 2023, after a 2-week trial and 2 hours of deliberation.
2 hours, that's like nothing.
Right. The jury found Caitlin Armstrong guilty of first-degree murder. The very next day, she was sentenced to 90 years in prison.
Good.
Bye-bye, Caitlin.
Yeah, it looks like you screwed up, you dumb, idiot, moron, piece of garbage.
So when Mo's mother, Karen, was given the opportunity to speak directly to Caitlin during the sentencing, she said, "I hate what you did to my beautiful daughter. It was very selfish and cowardly. It was cowardly because you never chose to face her woman to woman in a civil conversation. She would have listened. She was an amazing listener. She would have cared about your feelings. If you allowed yourself to actually know her, you never ever would have wanted to hurt her. This never would have happened. When you shot Moriah in the heart, you shot me in the heart." How sad is that?
Well, and you can tell that's a person that knows how to speak. Like, it's like, yeah, you took the cowardly way out, and you know, you would imagine that somebody like Caitlin Armstrong would be like a victim, you know, be like, well, she shouldn't have been with my boyfriend or whatever. It's like, no, this is you. This is you. If you would have been a decent human being, like any other person in this courtroom, then we wouldn't be here today, and you wouldn't have to be on the run from police.
Right.
And you're a crazy person trying to change your face. Like, who's the person here that is the problem?
And that's what Karen said. Like, you ruined your life. You ruined our life. You ruined your family's life.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. And, you know, had you had the decency to just have a conversation, you would have fallen in love with Mo just like everyone else that knew her would have.
You probably would be friends, and then Colin and you wouldn't be together anymore, and you could go look at other adventures. But clearly she has mental issues.
Right. So to honor Mo, her family created the Moriah Wilson Foundation, since she was the type of person who wanted to pick people up when they were down. She was always there for people who needed support, encouragement, and inspiration. That's who she was to the core.
Sounds like an amazing girl.
It was the foundation's mission to promote healthy living and community building, to support organizations that were dedicated to expanding access to recreation, sports, and educational departments to, you know, really help better communities, get people out in the community physically fit and active. And it was always like Mo's true mission to help inspire others to be active, to promote positive body image awareness for especially women and female athletes. Moriah felt the value of strength within a community. She saw relationships as the drivers of change. It is the goal of the Moriah Wilson Foundation to strengthen communities as she had hoped to do so. That was her goal. Like, I want to rise to the top of this community to not only build my career, but to help inspire other people around me. And I mean, this girl I'm in awe of her.
That's a born leader that's going to make like the human race better.
I know.
And unfortunately, her loss is even multiplied because you've lost such a good person.
So terrible. So this year on May 11th, 2024, which just so happened to be the 2-year anniversary of Mo's murder, they held the second annual Ride for Mo race, which was held and turned that terribly sorrowful day into a day of joy. Which, what better way could you possibly honor a person that's what their goal was to do?
And I'd imagine Mo would have liked that.
She would have loved that. And I don't know her, but just reading about her, you start to identify with who a person is. The Wilson family raised $34,000 after filling all 300 spots that they had available. And again, this is only the second annual race. I think every year it's just going to build and build and build.
Heck yeah.
And then their daughters, you know, isn't just lost in vain. They're doing something good to help strengthen the community.
Well, one, you're raising money. Two, you're like making friendships happen because people meet at this thing and get to know each other and can support each other as a community. And like everything that Mo was about, basically.
Yes.
And it's supporting everything. It's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. So they also had a bike trail in a place called Kingdom Trails in northern Vermont. They built a trail on one of the paths to honor Mo, and it was called Moriah's Ascent. And this was a location that was truly sacred to her. We do know that in the days before her death, or weeks or months, she was starting to prepare to move back to this area that was so near and dear to her heart. And, you know, I just think that is just a really great way to honor her as well. And that is the sad and tragic murder of Mo Wilson.
Terrible.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if this story made you sad, then, you know, do something good out in the community today or this week or whatever, you know. Maybe reach out to your neighbor that you haven't talked to in a while.
Yeah.
Or like, really, she seemed like a person that just, you know, she was just friends with this Colin guy and friends with everybody. And like everybody knew her and she spread positivity. And if you can do a couple things, I'm going to try to reach out to some people and family, you know, maybe if you haven't talked to your mom or dad in a little bit, just give them a call. call because I'd love to hear from you. So, and Kate, Mo would have loved that.
And we always tell our kids, you never know what people are dealing with. And that's why it's always important to just remember kindness and grace. And everything that I read about Mo, that's what she was about.
Yep.
Picking people up when they were down. Yeah. And knowing that community is important. We need love and support and people around us. We can't go at this life alone.
It's better for you, like not just you, Allison, but like everybody.
Yeah.
We need people in our lives. That's the kind of animal that we are. We need people. Even if you're an introvert, you still need some connections.
Right. And then she also knew how important physical fitness and activity was to a human body and soul.
You need to get out and feel the sun a little bit. You need to move around, whether that's just a walk or whatever it might be. Get outside.
Right. And the fact that, Mo's family, they're clearly devastated. They lost this amazing human being. But the fact that they're honoring her, knowing they can't ever get her back, what better way could they do that? Yep. So just a sad story.
Absolutely. If you liked what you heard in the way that we presented this or Allison presented this, then please consider being a subscriber through Apple Podcasts or through a Patreon. Go ahead and take a look at the show notes. And you can get access to about 60 different episodes, 60 plus. So go take a look.
Yeah, it's probably more. It's over 70 at this point.
Okay. So yeah, that's we'd love to have you. And we appreciate everybody's support. We get a couple new ones every week and very much appreciated. So.
Always appreciated. Thank you guys so much. I can't tell you how much we appreciate each and every one of you for taking the time in your busy life to listen to us, to support us, to send a nice message. It means everything to us. And we will be back for another episode next week. And until next time, bye.